Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning if you're dialing in from the States. While we wait for a few others to join, let me just go through a few bits of housekeeping. First of all, please can you try and keep yourselves on mute for the duration of this webinar. If you do want to ask questions, of course, there'll be an opportunity to ask them, but if you want to ask something, please do so using the chat function. And you'll see a little speech bubble either at the top of the screen or on the right-hand side of your screen, depending on which version of GoToMeeting you're using. So please just open up the chat function, type in whichever question you want asked, and then at the end of this talk, we will do our best to answer as many questions as we can. Also on this call is my colleague Lindsay Fair, who's the Agent Relationship Manager for the UK, for Asia and Australia and a few other different regions. So she'll jump on the call at the end and help me answer some of those questions. I'll try and keep this, of course, down to an hour. I know that's what you've allocated in your diaries. There's a fair bit to get through in that time, but we will do our best to try and keep it as brief as possible. There will be a recording being sent out after this webinar, so you can look out for that in future newsletters. The last bit of housekeeping is just to do with videos. I've broken up this presentation with a few really interesting videos from some of our implementing partners and some of my colleagues. They, depending on your internet strength and bandwidth, they can be a bit jittery, so please do bear with me on that. Many of them have subtitles and the audio should be fine. But yeah, apologies if that's the case for you, if it is a bit jittery. So just while we wait for the others to begin, my name is James. I'm the Agent Training Manager here at Asilia. It's my job to essentially train up agents on all things East Africa and all things Asilia. And today, it's my pleasure to speak to you about our positive impact, which is, to be honest, probably the most important part of our entire business. It's something that I'm extremely passionate about, and it's the reason that I actually joined the Africa travel industry in the first place. And if you've joined this call, presumably you've got a similar interest, and I'm sure it's played a role in your careers as well. So I'm extremely proud to be able to share some of the work that Asilia does with you today. And it's only possible because of your support. Essentially, without agents sending us bookings and tourists traveling through our camps, none of this stuff would be possible. So please do bear that in mind. But yeah, we'll get going now. So today we'll start off just by looking a little bit at Asilia as a company and what we deliver. I'll then go through Asilia Giving, which is really fundamental to this whole thing, and that is our charitable arm, the charitable part of the organisation. I'll then explain how we operate responsibly in terms of our environmental footprint, which of course is hugely important. And then we'll spend the bulk of the talk going through our homegrown initiatives, which are initiatives that we've come up with ourselves, where we've identified spaces and things that we can improve on. And then we'll then move on to how we work with implementing partners. So we work with a number of established partners within the region that we operate in, who run some amazing both community and conservation projects, and we'll go through those in order. I've separated those into two different halves. So we'll look at the community and cultural stuff first, and then we'll move on to wildlife conservation afterwards. And throughout the whole presentation, I'll also show you exactly how your guests can get involved. We've got some amazing positive impact activities that your clients can get involved with, and I'll point those out as we go. But firstly, just a bit about Asilia. So Asilia is Swahili for genuine, and we've built a reputation for delivering incredible safari experiences, but always with an unwavering commitment to empowering both local people and nature alike. And that is really fundamental to absolutely everything that we do. Asilia was founded by some extremely passionate people with deep roots in East Africa back in the 40s, when initially we were just a DMC service. We then started opening camps, and Rekero was our first camp in Kenya, where it still operates today. That was opened in 1987, which was shortly followed by Oliver's in 1992. Wind the clock on to 2004. That's when Asilia was officially founded as a brand and as a company. And today we employ hundreds of people across 23 camps and lodges in Tanzania and Kenya. And we are always seeking to offer safari experiences paired with conservation efforts which make a meaningful change. And that's really the part of the part of the business which I'm going to be talking about with you today. We really do see tourism as a force for good and a driving force for development in these regions. But obviously, for it to work, we desperately need support from our partners. So how does Asilia make a change and make a positive impact in the areas that we operate in? So we contribute equally to communities and wildlife in numerous ways, and all of the money that we raise, which I'll go through in a moment, is split exactly 50-50 between community projects and wildlife conservation. We recognise that without supporting one, you've got absolutely no chance of succeeding with the other. So without getting local communities on board, you've got no chance for long-lasting change with sustainability and with conservation efforts. To do this, we make initially bold and pioneering investments into areas which are often ecologically or economically vulnerable, and usually we build camps in areas where tourism has had very little foothold before, and then we bring all of the positive sides to tourism which can benefit those areas to those regions. We then work really closely with communities, authorities, NGOs to ensure their long-term success, and that's a constantly kind of ongoing process that we're looking at. Once we've found areas to build our camps, then operationally, of course, we need to do everything we can to minimize our carbon footprint. We implement solar power wherever we can. We reduce plastics. We work extremely hard then on staff training and recruiting locally and so on. And then once we're established as a camp, we then look at ways that we can support the surrounding region. And that has taken the form through both homegrown initiatives, which I'll speak about in a moment, and then working with already established implementing partners and supporting them do the work that they already carry out. If you see on this slide on the right-hand side, this is all of the money that was that we were able to distribute in the 2018-19 season, so just last year. Some of the numbers are absolutely staggering. If you look at the $5 million which went straight into wilderness areas, which is all through park fees and conservation fees and so on, right down to the smallest number, which is 44 scholarships, which are incredible. And we'll go through some of those stories a bit later on. So yeah. In terms of actually raising that money, which we can then spend equally between communities and wildlife, we, well, in 2015, initially, we set up a $5 conservation contribution, which goes towards every single bed night. So every single time someone stays with us at Asilia, $5 of that bed night goes towards as a conservation contribution. That all goes into Asilia Giving. Now, Asilia Giving is an online platform which directs funds to our charities in Tanzania and Kenya. It's run by independent boards who vet the various programs that we support, and they ensure that 100% of that money gets spent on the grassroots projects where it's needed. Those $5 conservation contributions, alongside some very kind charitable donations from previous clients, all adds up. And just last year, all of that money equated to a staggering $338,000, which we were then able to spend 100% of it on our positive impact programs, which we'll look at during the course of this talk. Some of the numbers you'll see on the right-hand side, over $50,000 to the Committee Foundation, $26,000 to the Kenya Wildlife Trust, $13,000 to Ruaha Carnivore Project. There's just so much, and we'll go through a number of these incredible initiatives in this talk. So this is a full list of the implementing partners that we work very, very closely with. We won't have time to go through all of them today, but a number of them do get mentioned. We'll talk about the Serengeti Cheetah Project, Tiwiri will get a mention, the Southern Tanzania Elephant Program, Honey Guide, Mar Trust. There's a huge amount to get through, as I say. The important thing is that we're only able to support these companies by having tourists coming to stay with us, and that only happens when our partners, yourselves, are able to send business our way. So it really is so important, and there's never been a more kind of crucial time than at the moment for us to be able to support these companies. We need your support as well. So firstly, I'll talk about operating responsibly in terms of our camps, specifically our camp locations. So when we first set out about building new camps, then very often we look in areas which, as I said, tourism has had very little footprint before, and there's loads of different examples for this. Three of the better examples are Sayari, which was back in 2005 the very first camp that was actually built in the northern part of the Serengeti. At that time, believe it or not, poaching was really, really bad. The local communities had very limited other forms of revenue and ways to kind of make a living, and as a result of that, lots of wildlife was sadly poached for bushmeat and other things. Our presence up there meant that suddenly there was another way forward, and having tourism there has really benefited the area. As you'll know now, for anyone that's been up to the Serengeti to see a river crossing, it's one of the most prolific areas for wildlife in the whole of Africa, really. Tourism has been booming up there, and there's a number of other camps that have joined us, and it's a really, really successful area. In a similar vein, the Highlands, which is our camp in the Ngorongoro crater, which you can see in the top right-hand corner here, and it's those little white dots there, is actually the camp on the slopes of the Olmoti volcano. We built that camp a long way away from the other camps in the Ngorongoro area, and that essentially spreads out the tourism and means that other communities can also benefit from all of the positive things that tourism can bring. So we've been operating our camp there, which has really, really helped the surrounding region, and it also gives us the most pristine, incredible environment to explore as well. We're a long, long way from any other camps. In a similar vein, Rabondo Island, which is pictured in the bottom right-hand corner, is similarly remote in the sense that it's a huge island national park. It's actually the largest island national park in the whole of Africa. It's in Lake Victoria. We're the only lodge on there. So before we were there was no tourism, and then now, thankfully, we've brought some, and that enables us to help protect that area and help in the conservation project which is going on, specifically looking at chimpanzees, and we'll discuss that a bit later on. So opening camps in pioneering areas is really, really important in terms of spreading tourism to some very far-flung and often marginalized areas of East Africa. Once we've built those camps, of course, we work extremely hard to make sure that our carbon footprint is as small as possible. Ultimately, the kind of most important thing is that we need to look after our planet, and that really comes through everything that we do in terms of operational side of things. So, of course, we install solar power systems wherever we can and work off renewable energy as much as possible. We also have very, very intensive waste management programs and look at different ways to manage wastewater as well. 90% of our power comes from renewable sources. And what little energy we can't get from renewable sources, we make sure that we offset through Carbon Tanzania. So we are very proud to say that we're actually carbon neutral as a company since 2009. And that includes not only just how we run our camps, but also things like unavoidable things like our international flights or our electricity in our offices and so on. All of that is offset. We also work very hard at reducing our plastic. We, in 2016, we completely got rid of our plastic water bottles. We've got rid of all single-use plastics now, which is actually a little bit harder to actually do than say, particularly when you're looking at things like biodegradable lunch packs and things in East Africa, which wasn't easy to implement, but we've got there, which is fantastic. And then in Matemwe, we partner with Zanrec, who help promote plastic recycling initiatives, and we also do lots of beach cleans and things like that to try and clear up as much plastic from the beaches as possible. We're always looking at new ways as to how we can improve this. And just last year, we added our first solar-powered electric vehicle at Old Pejeta Bush Camp, which is really, really cool, and hopefully the future for safari vehicles. And then this year, we've literally just opened Sayari back in June, and that's got the world's first solar-powered microbrewery in the bush. Not only does that produce fantastic beers, which is great, but it also helps with purifying water, removing microplastics from the water, and also massively cuts down transportation costs for things like beers, sparkling water, normal drinking water, and so on. And that cuts a huge amount of carbon dioxide from the whole system. Now, of course, we don't do all these things for the accolades, but nonetheless, it's very, very nice to receive recognition for all of the hard work that goes in. In the Mara, all of our camps there have received the highest level from ecotourism, which is the gold eco rating, which is amazing. In Tanzania, 8 of our camps have been awarded the highest level, which is called tree level, by Responsible Tourism Tanzania. Asilia remains the only safari company in Africa to be certified by the Global Impact Investment Rating System, which actually puts us in the top 10% of recognized impact companies worldwide. And as I mentioned, we're the largest contributor to Carbon Tanzania as well, who help us cut our unavoidable carbon emissions. So there's a huge amount that goes on in terms of just operating responsibly. Now, we have developed a couple of our own initiatives, and this is where we'll start talking about some of the real hard work that goes on the ground in terms of our community work and also our conservation. These have come about where we've recognized areas that we can help with or that we can improve, and we've developed our own programs. One of which is Twende Perini, and I'm now going to hand over to Pete, who's one of our long-standing camp managers in Kenya, to explain what it's all about. As I said at the beginning of this talk, there are a few videos, and I apologize if they're a bit jittery, but hopefully the audio should be okay.
This Twende Perini program gives them a when they finish up here, they head home to their villages and they're able to then pass on the knowledge that they've learned here. We are proud to work with Twende Perini kids so that they will engage in conserving the environment tomorrow.
Hope you at least caught the audio for the end of that, but the subtitles should have helped. So yeah, Twende Perini, as Pete was saying, it's an amazing initiative. It's aimed at children between 9 and 14 years old, and approximately we take about 60 kids each year. And actually, in 2019, we managed to take 69 children into our camps to show them an amazing time and show them all of the benefits that tourism can bring, and the importance of looking at wildlife as a future revenue source. Really, as a precious resource to be protected for the future. It's critically important that we get children on board with this because ultimately they're the future leaders, they're the future decision makers, and it's essential that they appreciate and engage with the fragile ecosystems which surround them. Due to COVID-19, we sadly weren't able to run Twende Perini this year. We didn't deem it safe enough to do so. Obviously, our hopes are to get the program up and running as soon as possible, but that's just one of the many sort of sad things that have happened as a result of COVID. It hasn't given these children their usual opportunity, but as I said, hopefully we'll be able to run this again next year. Another program that we've set up is our Managers for the Future, and we're extremely committed to uplifting and empowering local communities. We employ locally wherever possible. We invest a huge amount of time and money in training, and we always encourage career progression. As I'm sure you will have noticed, if you've been to any of our camps and spoken to any of our head guides or camp managers or some of the other senior staff and asked them about their journey, more often than not, they will have started out in housekeeping or one of the other professions and have been given those opportunities to develop their careers and work their ways through the ranks. Last year, as part of this, we actually offered 44 scholarships through the Committee Foundation, and that essentially gives children financial help with their school fees. And we also offer internships in our camps for some children as well. And those internships very often result in full-time employment and gives them the opportunity and the step up that they need for a career in tourism. Now, thankfully, guests are becoming more and more aware of conservation and positive impact issues and so on, and they want to actively engage in some of the amazing work that goes on. Which is exactly why we have developed 34 unique positive impact guest activities, and information about all of these can be found on our agent zone. I will go through a number of these as we sort of make our way through the talk today. All of these positive impact activities, there's a fee associated to them, usually a pretty modest one, but all of that funding, 100% of it goes into those partner projects. It's fantastic at increasing awareness for the PI work that goes on, as well as promoting our partners' work in the field. But in terms of just an experience level, it really does offer guests a huge range of activities way beyond the standard game drives that kind of any old safari operator can offer. It develops a much more enriching and holistic safari experience, and really allows them to see the purpose of their travel and allows them to see tourism really as a kind of force for good, as I've mentioned before. As well as our homegrown initiatives, which I've just been through, like I said earlier, we do work very, very closely with some established implementing partners. And I've split these into two distinctive sections. As I said, through Asilia Giving, 50% of our money goes to community project, which I'll speak about now, and the other half goes to our wildlife conservation programs, which we also work with, which I'll speak about afterwards. One of the amazing community programs that we work with is with the Mar Trust. And I will now hand over to Restian, who's the project manager there. Hopefully you can hear her explaining exactly what goes on at the Mar Trust.
My name is Restian, and I'm a project manager at the Mar Trust. 684 women are employed in our fieldwork and honey project. Asilia supports us with financial backing, ordering our products for each of their camps, and 65% of our annual revenue comes from guests. Income generated is spent on products that will improve their family lives, such as rainwater tanks, solar systems, alternative cooking fuel, and school fees. Together, we are improving the lives of Maasai women and children in the Maasai Mara.
So the Mar Trust is, as I said, is just an amazing initiative going on around the Naboisho Conservancy in the Masai Mara. Now, traditionally in the Maasai culture, only men could generate income, and that means that women were always financially dependent on men, and without direct benefits from tourism or conservation, women were understandably felt marginalized. So the Mar Trust is really helping to change all of that by giving employment opportunities to women, and is an amazing thing for women empowerment in the Maasai community. It's possible to visit the Mar Trust from any of our camps in the Mara. It's a free of charge excursion. Usually can be done in a half day, particularly if you're staying in the conservancies. It's available to book in camp or can be pre-booked as well. When you go there, essentially as a guest, you would meet some of the women. You'd get a tour around the whole complex and see them working, and then you'll also get an opportunity to go to the gift shop where you can buy some of their amazing produce. They produce some amazing beadwork, and the honey is incredible. Actually, there's always a massive scrabble around all the different safari camps to try and get the honey whenever it's produced. Sadly, because of COVID-19 as well, they were forced to close in March. It wasn't safe for them to continue to operate. And in the interim, it led to a very difficult period where essentially all of them became unemployed overnight, which had huge effects in terms of cash flow and so on. The Mar Trust acted extremely quickly with some of their investors, and they were able to help with food delivery, so that all the women that worked at the Mar Trust received a food pack, and Asilia helped with the logistics to deliver all of that food to kind of get them through that very tough period. I'm happy to say that now they have been able to reopen, and they are working again now, of course under sort of using strict government guidelines and social distancing and so on. But really, they are hugely dependent on tourism, and until tourism in any kind of meaningful numbers returns, they're not able to then sell their produce. The camps don't need it, the guests don't need it, and so on. So it's whilst in the short term that they're very much employed, and they'll continue to produce some of the amazing produce that they're well known for. We really need tourism to return so that the Mar Trust can carry off where they're left off, which is a very, very strong point at the beginning of this year. I'm now going to hand over to Epi Mark. He's the Positive Impact Coordinator, and he's going to talk a little bit about some of the local communities that we support and how they benefit from our existence.
Hello everyone, my name is Epi Mark, Positive Impact Coordinator of Asilia, Tanzania. Asilia, it runs its tourist business into the national parks, whereby out of the national parks we have these local communities, and these local communities at some point they have to benefit through us being out there. So at the moment we run in Ruaha National Park, whereby we have these Hehe people, and also we have other properties in Gorongoro, whereby also we have Maasai people, and also we have in North Serengeti in Mara, whereby we have these Kuria people. So these all local communities, they have to benefit uh, for us being into these communities. So at some point, we have these guests sometimes asking to go to see the local communities and to see the culture of these people. Like Hehe, when they dance, they have their own culture. Maasai, they have their own culture. When they dance, they wear these red cloth and they jump high. Also, guests they can experience. They can join these people. They can go and experience what is happening in Tanzania. Also, as you go to north for Korea people, they have their own culture whereby they have their different dancing, and they call like Ritungu dancing. They have Imitiambu dancing, whereby also the guests they can experience this when they stay into the park, and at some point they have time to go out. They can go and experience this local culture from our local communities. But during the COVID-19, since March, we've been a bit slow. Things didn't happen. We had a lot of plan to do. We normally have like 20 foreign program for the kids from local communities. We did not manage to do that because COVID-19, when it came and everything stopped, we had to stop all these activities into the communities. And because our camps also were closed, then we have to wait a little bit. And at the moment, things are kind of like moving on a little bit, and we're hoping that things will move on in a few days to come. Maybe next year, then we'll have this program going on again. So yeah, we're hoping that everything will go smooth, and yeah, everything will move on. Thank you.
Thanks to Mark for that. So yeah, as he mentioned, there's a number of different cultural experiences that we can offer guests. At Asilia, which of course means genuine, everything that we do, I mean, we do really strive to offer genuine experience, and there's really nothing contrived about it. The Curia cultural experience is something really, really unique and well worth doing if you have guests up in the northern part of the Serengeti. So you can do this from Sayari or from our migration camps when they're in their northern locations. The Curia tribe are obviously less well known than the Maasai, but equally interesting. They're a very energetic, colourfully dressed people, as you can see there, who love to tell stories about their history through their music and tribal dances. They also have a number of unique instruments, as Epimark just mentioned. So you've got the option as a guest to either go and visit the community for $50, or we can also get the Curia tribe into camp. They can come into Sayari for the evening for $475 for the whole group, which is an amazing experience. And actually at Sayari, we've just redone the whole decor of the whole camp, and we completely rebuilt it, and it's very much in keeping with the Curia tribe, and we've taken influences from them in terms of the color scheme and so on. And there's also instruments and things like that you can have a go at in the main area. So that works particularly well. Another cultural experience that we offer is the Hehe cultural experience. Now, this is down in southern Tanzania. There is a bit of a common misconception that you can't really do cultural experiences and things in southern Tanzania, which of course is not true. Just because the Maasai aren't there doesn't mean that you can't visit local communities. We offer this from all of our camps in Ruaha, so you can do it from Jabali Ridge or Kwihala. It's another fascinating, unique experience. The Hehe, an extremely warm and softly spoken people, but rather surprisingly, their kind of history has really been born out of war. And actually, they were the only tribe to hold off the German colonialists back in the 1890s. And like many tribes in Africa, very little has been written down. So really, the only way to sort of pass stories from generation to generation is via music and via dances and so on. And you can experience some of these either in camp for $475, a bit like I was saying with the Curia tribe, or you can go out to the local community from Ruaha as well. So well worth considering if you've got clients interested in that kind of thing, particularly the evening when they come into Jabali. And you can see the boma that we've got up there, which is one of the places where we eat dinner in Jabali, which is amazing. If you can imagine that having the hey people coming around and dancing and singing while you're having dinner, it's a really, really magical experience. Finally, our last cultural experience is the Maasai cultural experience, and to give you an idea of roughly what that entails is a very short promotional video. So the Maasai are really synonymous with safaris in East Africa, and their colourful dress, intricate beaded jewellery, and distinctive jumping dancing, which you've just seen in that video, really make them one of the best known local populations really in the world. Sadly, this has led to much of their way of life being a bit commercialised in certain areas for the sake of tourism. We ensure that the experiences that we have are truly authentic, and we work extremely hard at that. So we rotate the villages that we visit. We always ensure that the guest donations benefit the whole community. When you're actually doing one of these experiences, there's no hard sell at the end where you have to buy produce or anything like that. If you don't want to, of course, there's the option to if you do. But it's our relationship with those local communities is something that we work extremely hard at. And it's something that's made a bit easier by operating in often very remote areas, a bit like I was saying about the Highlands earlier. We're the only camp for miles and miles around. So obviously we're the only people that go and visit the communities around there, which makes it a little bit easier to manage. It's really that the mass tourism going through the villages, and that's really where things get problematic. So yes, we can do Maasai cultural experiences from the Highlands in Tanzania. We can also do it from our camps in the Masai Mara as well, the Boy Show in Counter Mara and the Mara Bush houses. Then moving into school support. So I've already mentioned the work that we do with the Committee Foundation, and we donated $54,000 in 2019 to the foundation. They work with 14 different partner communities in the areas that we operate. And in last year, in the 2018-19 season, they supplied more than 420 desks through us to various schools in Tanzania. We also granted a total of 44 scholarships to Kenya and Tanzania, getting children through school and paying their school fees. In Kenya, very, very gratefully, we also had some guest donations, which helped us give scholarships to an additional 25 children and help with their school fees in Kenya as well. One of the lucky students to benefit from this is Natty. So just to give you one example of those 44 children who have been helped, Natty was just 12 when she got married off to a 55-year-old man to help reduce the financial burden on her family. They couldn't afford her school fees and so on. She was desperately unhappy and ran away to seek help. And with our support, she's been given a scholarship. She's in school. She's receiving education, which obviously then helps her family as well. And then she will hopefully join our internship program, and there'll be it'll give her a much better chance at getting employment and finding work once she finishes school. So that's just one of the many people that we're able to help through the Committee Foundation. And your guests can have an opportunity to visit a local community or a school that we already support. And they will be able to go and sort of do that as part of their safari, take a day out, go to a local village. Depending on the village and the time of day, the experience is going to change every single time. Essentially, guests would walk around the village, meet some local people, get an insight to daily life and see what's going on. We'll also always try and include a school visit whenever possible. But of course, it needs to be a cultural exchange, and both parties do need to benefit from that. So we would only ever do it during if it's a school, if it's say lunchtime or break time during school. We really want to ensure minimal disruption. There's also a donation of $20, which seems very little, but it goes a long way to that school. So also the guests can actively contribute to the school that they're visiting. I'm now going to hand over to Ross, who's art manager in Matemwe, and he's going to talk about some of the community work that goes on and also the conservation work going on at Matemwe.
Hello everybody, I'm Ross. I'm the manager of Matemwe Asilia in Zanzibar, and we just want to say a little bit about our PI in 2 minutes, which is going to be very difficult, so I'll go as quickly as I can. My wife and I have been based in Zanzibar for over 6 years, and so in that time we've had a lot of time to put projects together, as well as adopt Asilia's already running projects and hopefully grow them and make them a bit better. So what we do, every guest that stays with us, every bed night of every guest, we take $5 and we put that towards a fund. We then go into the community, we speak to community leaders about what projects they'd like to have done, and we do that project. We then take guests every single day, and we walk them around the village every day free of charge, and they go and visit the projects. We do that. We find it inspires a donation, a cash donation sometimes. We don't ask for it, but sometimes guests feel inspired to give us a cash donation or a card donation, and from there, what they'll do is we'll back that from a month-to-month basis, and then we use that money to take kids on school trips, to take school kids diving, etc., etc. Then moving on to projects within the lodge itself, every single person that brings in for labour is from our village, and in order to have them working into guests and beds, obviously. Without the guests, we don't have anybody to help. So we also are trying to focus on women employment, and we've just started a really successful project. We've got 8 beehives on the property. We've had 8 ladies from the village trained in beekeeping. We've bought them all the necessities in order to do it professionally, and they are now keeping bees for us. We're making our own honey. And yeah, it's fantastic. We're buying the honey back from them, and they're making a business for themselves. Turtles, we do a lot with turtles in Zanzibar. We're probably one of the most active lodges in Zanzibar with turtle rescue and helping turtles. We work with a community up north in Nungwe, where basically we go out into highly poached areas. We rescue the eggs, maybe the turtles themselves. If there's any injured turtles, bring them back and look after them and release them. So I think that's my 2 minutes up. If you need to know more, just let us know, and we're happy to help you out. Cheers.
Thanks to Ross.
Hello, everybody.
So yeah, one of that was sort of quite a nice segue, because he spoke a bit about the community work that goes on in Zanzibar, and they're able to help with, and then as well some of the conservation projects, which is really what I'm going to move on to now. One of which he already mentioned, which is the turtle sanctuary, which we do a lot of work with, and guests staying at our properties in Matemwe in Zanzibar are able to go and visit the turtle sanctuary. And they're doing some great work in terms of rehabilitating turtles which have been caught in fishing nets and been injured, and there's a lagoon where guests can actually feed the turtles, learn about the work that's going on to rehabilitate them before they get released back into the wild. Another element of what goes on at the turtle sanctuary is lots of turtle eggs are actually poached and sold on the black market, and they do a huge amount in terms of trying to stop that and try to protect those eggs and hatch them wherever possible. So it's an amazing thing for guests to be able to go and visit, and that's something that we can do from Zanzibar. Then moving from Zanzibar into Kenya, I'm going to speak a little bit about the Naboisho Conservancy, which is an incredible model really for in terms of the future of conservation. So Naboisho means coming together in Ma, which is the local language of the Maasai. It was created in 2010 when over 500 Maasai landowners all agreed to use their land in the same way, which was to set up a conservancy and allow safari operators like Asilia to run safari operations there. the aim is very much to look after the land and the wildlife, but all the parties need to benefit from it. So the local people, the Maasai landowners still receive a rent from us. We pay them a fee for being there. In turn, they are still allowed to graze their livestock, but only in a controlled way. And the wildlife has to be protected. There's not allowed to be any hunting. There can be no fences built and so on. So the wildlife is free to roam. And as a result, all parties are benefiting hugely. The landowners are receiving more money than before. The livestock is doing very well because it's being controlled and managed in a better way. The wildlife is flourishing as it can move in and out, and there's an abundance of prey. And the safari experience, as a result, is really, really top notch. So it's really, really successful. Another part of it, as being part of the conservancy, is that you also have to invest in projects which are going on. So we support local schools. There's a guiding school there as well, which is supported through Naboisho. There's improved access to healthcare, to clean drinking water, and also women empowerment, which we've already spoken about. So there's a huge amount extra that goes in for just one guest going on safari. That helps this whole chain benefit from their presence being there. All of it is interlinked, as I've just tried to explain. And the success of the Naboisho Conservancy is entirely dependent on tourism. It's a really interesting case study, I think, because it really sums up all of the issues that are going on across Africa these days because of the COVID crisis restricting tourist numbers. I'm now going to pass over to Gerard, who's our regional operations manager in Naboisho, who's been instrumental in helping with the conservancy, and he's going to explain this a little bit further.
Hi, I'm Gerard Beaton, the Regional Operations Director for Asilia. James has asked me to speak to you today about Naboisho Conservancy and how the Conservancy is weathering the COVID crisis so far. To give you a bit of background, the Conservancy started in 2010. It's essentially a partnership between 550 Maasai families and 6 tourism partners. On an annual basis, the tourism partners need to come up with $1.7 million towards the land leases and about $400,000 towards conservancy management. So obviously, given the revenue is solely reliant on tourism, when the COVID crisis hit us in the middle of March, we had to think quickly. We sat down with our landowner representatives, and they very quickly agreed to reduce land rent by 50% through to July next year, which is when our next high season is. This has been a huge help, and the tourism partners have rallied with their shareholders and sought out other soft loans in order to service these land leases. At the same time, we got together and we put out a crowdfund campaign targeted to all the past travelers and any friends of the Conservancy. And within a couple of months, we raised $125,000 towards the Conservancy operational costs. This obviously been a huge help, and since then we've managed to secure some other donor funding, including some support from the Kenyan government. And the good news is that we're safe. We're funded through to the middle of next year, and hopefully from July next year, the tourism will bounce back, and we can have a somewhat normal season, and the Conservancy can continue to go from strength to strength. Thanks very much.
I think that sums up it really, really nicely, because you can see how people have acted extremely quickly to solve what is a very, very difficult situation. But really, for the long-term success for it to work, we really need tourists to return as soon as possible. And with a bit of luck, that'll happen next season, in which case we would have sort of negated this crisis. But it has taken a huge amount of work from a number of people.
Hi, I'm Gerard.
So there are a number of conservation initiatives that guests can visit from Naboisho, one of which is the Mara Predator Conservation Program, which is run by the Kenya Wildlife Trust. Now, amazingly, all predators, all big cats are endangered, and predators are essential for a healthy and balanced ecosystem. This program works extremely hard at protecting particularly big cats in the Mara area, where human wildlife conflict is just inevitable, really. They do some incredible work. Things like recently a cheetah was saved from a snare near our camp at Rakero, which was then rehabilitated and released. They help to educate communities on the importance of predators. They offer incentives for not hunting and dealing with situations where livestock are hunted by lions and so on, to ensure that lion populations remain stable and other big cats. If you've ever been to Nabosho or kind of the Mara generally, you'll know that they're doing an amazing job because there are just so many big cats there, which is fantastic. But they do need our ongoing support. Another guest experience is to visit the Mara Elephant Project. They're a really, really fascinating program as well. As human populations increase, more land is obviously converted into farming, and crucial wildlife areas are reduced, which also closes ancient corridors, wildlife corridors, which elephants used to use. As a result, elephants regularly move into villages, and that's when there are problems, when they move into other people's crops and so on. Amazingly, approximately 50% of Kenya's wildlife actually lives outside of protected areas. So organizations like this are really essential to try and mitigate those risks. As a guest, you can go and visit the headquarters, see or sort of understand exactly what they do, see some of the snares and spears and things that they've recovered from the field, and also understand a little bit about what they do in terms of rapid response and monitoring elephants when actively seeing where they're going to go near a village and preventing the situation from arising. So that's a really, really interesting thing to do. You can also visit the Old Choro Rhino Sanctuary. If nothing else, then go here for the most incredible sundowner. It's such an amazing spot overlooking the whole Masai Mara. But there's also a serious side to this as well, which of course is the rhino conservation that's going on. Rhino horn reaches a staggering $60,000 per kilo on the black market. So it's no surprise that their numbers are in decline all across Africa in areas where they're not protected. There are very, very few rhinos in the Masai Mara, and you can be guaranteed to seeing them if you come to the Old Choro Rhino Sanctuary, where you can chat to the rangers, learn a little bit more about what they're doing and the sacrifices they've made to look after those rhinos, and learn a bit more about the plight that the African rhino faces more globally. Keeping on the topic of rhinos, we're now going to move from the Masai Mara over to Old Pejeta, the Old Pejeta Conservancy, where the last two remaining northern white rhinos in the whole world exist.
My name is James Mwenda, and I am speaking to you from Old Pejeta Conservancy in Kenya. It has been 4 months since our borders were closed to all international flights. We are facing an unprecedented financial crisis which affects our ability to keep our endangered species safe. But failing is not an option for us. Reporting of work on the ground continues. We still attend to cases of human-wildlife conflict. Our anti-poaching unit continues with its security efforts. The vet team is always on the call to attend to injured animals. The rhino monitoring team is as vigilant as always, and our chimpanzee caretakers are taking great precautions to keep them safe from COVID-19. We are now looking at a downturn in tourism revenue of $4 million. A serious existential crisis as it defines most of our work. We need your help now more than ever. Thank you for those that have heeded to our call of support at these challenging times. Thank you for those that are continuing to donate towards the support of these rhinos. Your help will go towards making sure that Najin, Fatu, as well as the rest of the rhinos we have in the Conservancy are well protected. Thank you so much, and we're looking forward to more support. Please consider making a donation to sustain our efforts in protecting our most vulnerable species.
Thanks to James for that. So yeah, another way to contribute and to support the Old Pegerter Conservancy is to send your guests there and go and visit it yourselves. Obviously, the conservation fee goes towards supporting the conservancy, but also they have the opportunity to do some amazing conservation activities. Certainly, something that everyone that goes to Old Pegerter has to do is to go and visit the endangered species enclosure, where James filmed a lot of that from. There you can visit the last 2 remaining northern white females in the world and hear all the stories about exactly what's going on to try and bring that species back from the brink of extinction. Actually, you may have seen in the news over the past week or so, they've successfully extracted 10 eggs from Najin and Fatu, the two remaining rhinos, with the hope of creating viable offspring. So there is a slim chance for the northern white rhino, but it requires a huge amount of work and a huge amount of support and therefore funding. Additionally to visiting the endangered species enclosure, there's loads of other activities. In fact, at Old Pegerter, if you stay at Old Pegerter Bush Camp, there's more activities to do there than at any other of our camps. A full list is on our agent zone. Some of them are listed here, including going out with the canine anti-poaching unit, going lion tracking with the rangers, understanding more about the wildlife and livestock integration program, because there's a huge population of Borana cattle on the Conservancy as well as the opportunity to visit local communities and cultural visits, which we've already touched on earlier on. Now, moving from Kenya into northern Tanzania, Doris is our positive impact coordinator, and she's going to talk a little bit about the canine dog unit, which we help fund for the Honey Guide Foundation.
Hello, my name is Doris Gemere, Public Relations and Positive Impact Coordinator in Tanzania. Asilia DNA is in through Positive Impact, whereby we have conservation projects and community projects. So today I'll talk about conservation projects, and one of the projects that we support is Canine Dog Unit that is run by Honey Guide Foundation. Honey Guide Foundation formed Canine Dog Unit in 2015, whereby they saw a threat or a big demand of having a unit that will be catching all these poachers that kill elephants around in these ecosystems. So there's been a big threat of elephant killing in Serengeti and Tarangire ecosystem, and that's when the dog unit was formed. So Asilia has been involved or has been supporting Honey Guide through guest donations that we have been receiving, and we have been doing this since 2015, and it has been a success working with Honey Guide, whereby our support has been seen, and we have seen a reduction of elephant killing, a reduction of thefts in different areas of this park, and for sure we can say it has been a success supporting Honey Guide canine dog unit. So right now, of course, it's a challenge due to COVID-19, since there are no guests coming into Tanzania, but we hope in the near future, guests will be coming and things will be moving to normal. But for sure, even with the dog unit project, it's been a challenge because there are no funds. And right now, like most of the operations are stuck. And so basically what they're doing right now is to ensure that the dogs are in good health. That is what they're currently doing now. Of course, with some very few operations, but not as how it used to be, because through our guests, they were supporting us big time, they were assisting us big time, and then the dogs' activities were so many. So right now, the challenge is they cannot expand to different areas where there's a need of the dog unit going around. So it's been a challenge, but we hope in the near future, our guests will be back, and tourism will welcome back, and conservation will be back to normal. So we hope in the near future you'll be back. Welcome to Tanzania, Tanzania Unforgettable.
So yes, as Doris was saying, we work really, really closely with the Honey Guide Foundation, and actually it was started by one of Asilia's founders back in 2007, and we've supported it ever since. Now the Honey Guide Foundation work across a load of different conservation projects, one of which I'll speak about now, and I'll also mention the chimps in a moment. So just in terms of the canine anti-poaching unit, which is what Doris was saying, which is funded by Asilia, the dogs have been extremely successful, as you'll see in the next video. And the canine unit is an affordable, innovative, and highly effective solution to protecting wildlife. They've had staggering effects on reducing the numbers of elephant that have been poached in the Tarangire and Manyara ecosystem, as this fairly hard-hitting video shows. So yes, amazing. So as I said, the Honey Guide Foundation work across a number of different projects. Another one that we work very, very closely with them on is the chimp project going on over in Robondo Island, which was the property I was speaking about earlier in Lake Victoria. So here, it's a slightly interesting experiment, essentially. About 50 years ago, 16 chimpanzees from different parts of Africa were rescued from zoos and illegal wildlife trade, and they were released onto Robondo Island. The chimpanzees amazingly have done really well and adapted to life in the wild, and now their numbers are approximately at 60. We have an incredible opportunity because, as I said, we're the only lodge on Robondo Island, which means that guests can go out and trek with these chimpanzees. There's no restrictions on only being there for an hour and so on, and you can actually be part of the habituation process. The sightings have got better and better each year, particularly in the dry season, and it's a really phenomenal thing to be able to do. It's just a short flight away from the Serengeti. So we donated $80,000 to this project last season. So a huge amount of money does go into the protection of these chimpanzees. Sadly, we've had to close operations for this season due to COVID-19. The lighter aircraft flights are no longer flying, and due to the reduced tourist numbers, and we desperately need support in order to get that back up and running for the beginning of next season. It's something that we put so much time and energy into, and we will continue to do so, but we really need tourists to return come the start of next season. Then in Tarangire, also in northern Tanzania, another way that your guests could get involved in wildlife conservation is to chat to one of the Tarangire Lion Research Initiative team. They can come into camp for a donation which goes directly to the research initiative, and they can discuss exactly how they try and sustain the second largest lion population in Tanzania, and monitor that lion population to help protect it from human conflict. You can spend the evening listening to all the work that goes on, their challenges, and also a lot about the success stories that they have as well. So that's a really fascinating thing and something worth bearing in mind if you have guests staying at Oliver's or Little Oliver's. In a similar vein, if you're over at Namiri Plains, you can chat to some of the Serengeti Cheetah Project team. Dennis will come into camp for the evening and spend the late afternoon and evening talking about everything that goes on at the Serengeti Cheetah Project, which if any of you have had the fortune to be over in the eastern part of the Serengeti where Namiri, you'll know just how incredible it is for cheetah sightings and how many cheetahs are there. Despite this, Dennis will actually be able to identify whichever cheetah you've seen on your drives by looking at their spot patterns, and we'll be able to explain a little bit about that particular animal and kind of what goes on in terms of the protection of that species in such a crucial area, which is a real hotspot for cheetahs. Then moving into southern Tanzania, the last couple of initiatives that your guests may be able to get involved with is STEP, which is the Southern Tanzania Elephant Program. Now, elephants' numbers have sadly been absolutely decimated in recent years, and they've more than halved since 2009 to 2018. You can see the figures there. Approximately 79,000 of them were recorded in 2009, which dramatically reduced down to just 31,000 in 2018. So STEP work extremely hard with communities and governments to try and tackle this crisis. It's essential that STEP receives the funding that they need from parties such as us. And in so doing, we obviously need the support. One of the ways that your guests can get involved is to make a donation to STEP, and we do that as $200 for 1 to 3 people, or $300 for 4 to 6 people. And for that, one of the members of the team from STEP will come into camp and give a very long talk about the various issues that they face, and also going through some of the achievements that they've managed to do over the past few years as well, which there are many. The final thing I want to talk to you about today is the Usangu Wetlands Conservation Project. Now, this is one of the most exciting projects to come out of the next 12 months. Usangu is a long way south in Ruaha National Park, and it was actually joined onto the national park in 2005. But despite receiving that title and becoming part of the national park, it really was left unprotected until now. We've been given exclusive access to this region, and we're working extremely closely with TAWIRI, which is the Tanzanian Wildlife Institute for Research, and TANAPA, which are the park rangers. And we are conducting some wildlife counts and biological studies to first identify exactly what is down there. We've collared rowan, sable, lion, and leopard, and with more collaring programs planned for the coming months. We've also, obviously, as you can see, put some camera traps down there, and you can see some of the incredible wildlife that we're trying to protect down there. There's pangolin, there's leopard, there's aardvark, there's aardwolf, there's serval. Really, some of the most unique animals to Africa, and some of the most rarely seen, can all be found in Usangu. So we are, first of all, carrying out these biological studies, and then once we have established exactly the wildlife numbers and their movements and so on, then we can look at ways to actually protect them and putting measures in place to ensure the sustainability of that area. Wildlife aside, the other crucially important part of this area is our duty to protect the water source. So the Usangu wetlands is obviously a wetland, as you can imagine from the name, but it's the source to the Great Ruaha River, which runs dry every single year. And then the Great Ruaha River then flows into the Rufiji River, which is the biggest river in East Africa, which then flows out into the Indian Ocean. And the nutrients get washed all the way downstream, which begins in the Usangu wetlands, all the way down to the Mafia archipelago, which feeds the whole reefs and the ecosystem out there. So it's really, really fundamental, extremely important that this area, that is Usangu wetlands, is protected properly, and that's what we're trying to do. So for a donation of just $100 for 1 to 3 people, or $150 for 4 to 6 people, we can get a member of the team who's been instrumental in actually getting the Usangu Wetlands Conservation Project up and running, come into camp in Ruaha and explain about what's going on, what's been done already, how we're working with local communities, all of that kind of stuff, and also what the plans are for the future in terms of one day getting some ecotourism in a very small and managed way to this incredible area. So I know that's been a huge amount to take in, and a lot of information covered. If you want to read up on any of it and find out more, then please do go to our agent zone. If you haven't got access to the agent zone, then drop agentmarketing@asiliaafrica.com an email, and we can get you set up. On here, once you click on the Positive Impact tab, you will have access to our Positive Impact report. You'll be able to catch up with all of the Positive Impact partners, which I've spoken about today. And perhaps most importantly, you'll also be able to access the library of 34 Positive Impact activities, which all of your guests can do when they stay at Asilia camps. And all of the information on how to book that and what the activity actually consists of can be found on the Agent Zone. I hope that you enjoyed that. Thank you so much for your time. I know I've spilled about 5 minutes over there. As you've seen, we support some incredibly important projects, and we continue to do so, but we really do need your support now more than ever. So moving into next season, hopefully we can get some tourist numbers back to where they were last year. Thank you so much for your time. As I said, I'm now going to just, I think Lindsay's going to come off mute and hopefully ask a couple of questions. If you've got any more, then please just type them into the chat function now.
Hi, James. So I think we've only got one question, and that's from Erin. She was wondering about the school visits, and she was asking whether they are done outside of the school day, and if in order to sort of avoid disruption.
Yeah, so I think I did kind of touch on the fact that we do absolutely try to avoid any kind of disruption. And of course, if the kids aren't in school, then we're not able to visit them. So it has to be done during term times, which does put a bit of a restriction on the fact that we can't always offer them. But nonetheless, they are available most of the year. And of course, if you're worried about that, then we can chat about exactly how to go about that and look at times of year that actually will work.
And that's the only question. So we obviously did such a great job, James. No questions from the team at all. Okay, great. Well, in that case, thank you so much for listening. We'll be sending out a recording of this in a couple of weeks' time on a newsletter. So if you want to catch up with anything or forward it around your colleagues, then please do. If you have any questions, then don't feel free to drop us a line anytime. So yeah, thank you so much for your support and for all of your time today.